Thank you. Thank you very much. I am Ande Smith. I'm the son, the naval officer, the businessman, the cybersecurity expert, and the policy leader that my father, my colleagues, and my friends just spoke of. But today I stand here before you at this, our convention, to ask for your support to be the Republican nominee who vanquishes Shelley Pingree, and to make it so for the first time in 30 years that two Republicans represent Maine in the United States Congress. And I promise you all now, here today, that neither Bruce Poliquin or I, neither will not do Maine's work despite our considerable stature, because there's a lack of headroom anywhere that we go. I want to thank Rick Bennett, the GOP officers, the GOP staff, all the sponsors, and all of you here assembled for making this a great convention that we're all going to remember fondly. And I also want to thank all my supporters down here, because I can tell you nobody belts out anchors away like you do, and I'm humbled to have you out here today and very appreciative of it. Thank you very much. You know, amid the pomp and the speeches and the fellowship that I think we've had here the past 2 days, we've performed solemn work. We've performed the work of helping shape who the next president will be of the United States and proclaiming the ideals that we are as a Republican Party. We're the keeper of ideals, and those ideals are derived from the United States Constitution, the finest document of its kind ever conceived. And we're here because we understand that those constitutional ideals are not only a gift that has been bestowed upon us, one that's been protected over the years by the blood of countless soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guardsmen, merchant mariners, but it is indeed an obligation that we're all called here today to fulfill. And it's the sense of duty that comes with an obligation that we feel the burden of our times. We live today under the shadow of 8 years of failed leftist policies brought to life by Shelley Pingree that have touched every corner of our nation and our lives. I've spoken to Mainers across the 1st District, and they often say to me, Andy, we are a nation that has failed, that the damage done by Shelley Pingree and Barack Obama have robbed us of our birthright and our future. None less than Ronald Reagan, speaking before the 1964 presidential election, captured this same sense when he told us that you and I have a rendezvous with history. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will let them take the first steps into 1,000 years of darkness. Is that not how we often feel today? The Washington elites like Shelley Pingree have led us into a gray twilight. And we see it not just in world events. We see it not just as Obama takes the Constitution and twists and stretches it to the very breaking point, but we see it in the faces of our friends and neighbors who begin to lose hope that the future for their children and their grandchildren will not be greater than their own. Well, I say to you all here today that I will not stand for that future, for that 1,000 years of darkness. We will not let our children and grandchildren go into that night, because there is nothing that's been done that we cannot reclaim and rebuild. In similar times, Ronald Reagan turned us away from the path of defeatism and nihilism to hope and prosperity. This is what Mainers yearn for today. And with your help, this is what I will bring Maine and the people of the 1st District of Maine as representative of Congress. We'll restore prosperity by reviving the economy for all Mainers and creating new jobs, especially the jobs that lead our young people away from this state. Because you see, economic prosperity is really not out of reach for us. Yes, our economy is mired in recessionary levels, and we know the root cause of this is the explosion in regulation brought to you courtesy of Shelley Pingree. I've heard the stories of a young woman who struggles to expand her farm. I've talked to bankers who are hamstrung, unable to give small business loans. I've talked even to a woman who gives free services to our PTSD veterans because Obamacare has caused insurance companies to reduce the number of providers, not increase them, but reduce them. With your support, when elected to Congress, I will restore real economic prosperity to this country and bring jobs to Maine. And we'll do it first by seeking the immediate repeal of the excessive regulations supported by Shelley Pingree, including Dodd-Frank and Obamacare. That's right. Mainers deserve the right to create jobs, hire employees, get loans without fighting Washington red tape. And we must defuse the economic time bomb that is our nearly $20 trillion debt. It's over $156,000 per family in this state, a mortgage on top of a mortgage on top of a second mortgage. I'll sponsor balanced budget legislation that will include the provision that members of Congress, the President, and all political appointees not receive a salary unless such a budget's adopted. Because if your representatives to government can't do their job, they shouldn't be paid. And we'll do this by keeping our promises to the elderly. Social Security and Medicare must remain strong. Mainers have paid into these systems, and they deserve to age with dignity. That's right. And we'll restore hope to our nation by securing it, overseas and at home. I've spoken with veterans all over the state of Maine, and like me, they cannot believe what has happened as America has shrunk from the world stage and what it has ushered in. They cannot believe that illegal immigrants swarm our borders. They cannot believe that Islamist terrorists will walk the streets of this country, killing Americans at Christmas parties, and then we're asked to bring unvetted Syrian refugees to this country from the very heart of jihad. They cannot believe that countries with mastery of cyber tactics take control of dams in New York State, continue to build ballistic missiles, and at the time we give Iran $150 billion and retain its ability to pivot to perfect and deploy a nuclear weapon. Veterans are incensed, as I am, at images of Americans on their knees at guns held by Iranians on our very vessels on the high seas. They grit their teeth as aircraft fly attack patterns at American ships on the high seas while we consider a protest. They are aghast as China flaunts international law, builds airstrips and puts radars, missile batteries on them. And everyone, not just veterans, know what it means when North Korea detonates a nuclear weapon and then 2 weeks later launches a ballistic missile, demonstrating its ability to one day deliver such a device to the very heartland of this United States. With your support, when elected to Congress, I will work to protect America at home and abroad. And we'll do it first by restoring control of our borders. I'll introduce legislation that takes away incentives for illegal immigration by denying claims for asylum for anyone entering this country illegally and deporting them immediately. And we'll rebuild America's military. We'll arm them with ships made right here in Maine, aircraft with engines built right here in Maine, heavy weapons manufactured right here in Maine, ropes and targeting systems, yes, made right here in Maine, and we'll be sure that every military recruit wears a New Balance shoe when they report for training. But we have to also remember our alliances. Excuse me. Unlike Shelley Pingree, I will not boycott a speech by America's one enduring ally in the Middle East, Israel, while at the same time channeling billions of funding to Iran so they can continue to destabilize the world. Nor will I choose the path of Shelley Pingree and invest my time fretting about butterfly habitat while our veterans are left dying, waiting for the care that a promised them and a grateful nation owes them. We must give our veterans the care they deserve now. We'll also restore hope to this country by turning education back from Washington to Maine families and teachers. As a member of the Maine State Board of Education and the Maine Charter School Commission, I've heard stories from parents and grandparents all across the state. And what they tell me, if you were to put a label on it, is they are beginning or have lost faith in our ability to educate our children, and they feel powerless to make changes. Because what they're told when they try to is that there are rules and there are requirements and standards and testing obligations, and nothing can be done. And what they realize is that somehow long division, American exceptionalism, and an understanding of economics have been jettisoned in favor of the priorities of Washington. With your support, when elected to Congress, I will work to return control of education to Maine teachers and parents, and we'll do it by abolishing the Federal Department of Education. That's right. We'll retain programs like Pell Grants at the federal level where they belong, but otherwise we will packet it up its budget and send that to states in the form of a block grant without federal controls or strings. With the savings from the lost bureaucrats and from all the reporting obligations that we shed, we can take that money and invest it in teacher salaries, and we can use it to invest in the education of our children as we decide here in Maine, not in Washington. And perhaps most importantly, we will restore balance to the Constitution. Obama's supporters in Congress like Shelley Pingree have walked in lockstep as he has trampled the Constitution and lied to the American people while doing it. Using his pen and his phone and hulking regulatory agencies like the Internal Revenue Service, he has sacrificed the very legitimacy of our government in the mindless pursuit of a leftist agenda, leaving only the idea behind that the means justify the ends. With your support, when elected to Congress, I will work to restore common sense constitutional principles to Congress. I will work to ensure that Congress is the source of laws as our founders intended. I will support the REINS Act immediately, which will require that Congress approve any regulation issued by the executive branch, and I will work steadily to remove executive authority to create vast fields of regulation. It's work that Congress should do and where it belongs. And to restore a principle to Congress, I'll propose parliamentary rule changes such that one day of consideration be given for every 10 pages of final text in a bill, because you deserve that your lawmakers should know and have read what it is that they're passing. My friends, that's an ambitious list for the junior representative from the state of Maine. Will be. But I'm convinced that these are the first steps in taking our government and our liberty back from Washington elitists like Shelley Pingree. It's a path that leads towards hope, towards freedom and renewal. And it's a battle that I am prepared and ready to face for the people of Maine and for the 1st District. And it's a battle that we'll win, because Maine is ready for a return to hope and freedom. I hear it when I talk to Mainers, and I feel it in the swell of volunteers to this campaign, the call for signs, the followers on social media, and in the firmness of the handshakes and the whispered words of encouragement I've received. And we see it in our campaign's fundraising success, which you hadn't heard. In the first quarter of this year, this campaign outraised Shelley Pingree from people, not PACs, people in the state of Maine. And that's why we're going to take it to her. With faith, your support, that of my family, and the love of my life, Julie, I will bring my record of proven leadership to Washington, a broad range of qualifications across the topics that really matter to Maine, and a heritage of hard work to Washington to restore hope and help lead us out of that gray twilight towards a spring day, just like the one outside these doors, of hope and freedom. Thank you very much for being here today to guide our nation's future. God bless you all. God bless the state of Maine, and God bless the United States of America.